panel. Cenk Uygur, John Iredell, and Nina Turner with you guys. You have to say it in this voice, do you? How you doing, Senator Nina Turner? Uh-oh, muted.
Oh, hell, muted. I said recovering from dental surgery. That's probably why I had my while I was muted.
Okay, well, at least we did something unprecedented there. It was the first time Nina Turner was ever muted.
Yeah, or speechless at all in any way.
All right, so lots of stories. You might have heard about certain guys whose names rhymes with cannon, who might be in a place that rhymes with mail. That's my tease of the story, you know what it is. Anyways, but that's coming up in a little bit. We got tons of stories for you guys. John's gonna take it away.
We do, actually, and we're gonna start off with some fun video. Let's take a look.
Were you worried about him during that siege? Were you worried about his safety?
No, I thought he was well protected, and I had heard that he was in good shape. No, because I had heard he was in very good shape. But no,
you heard those chants. That was terrible. I mean, you know,
he could have. Well, the people were very angry.
They were saying, "Hang Mike
Because
Pence."
it's common sense, John. It's common sense that you're supposed to protect. How can you, if you know a vote is fraudulent, right? Yeah. How can you pass on a fraudulent vote to Congress?
That amazing audio that you just heard is journalist Jonathan Karl speaking with Donald Trump in March. So less than 2 months after the insurrection on January 6th. And Donald Trump asked about the fact that some of his followers were attempting to assassinate the vice president, said he was fine. And then when pressed to denounce the hang Mike Pence chants, he instead said, they've got a point. It's common sense. If the vote is fraudulent and you can overturn it, neither of which are true, but he believes both are true, well then obviously you're gonna wanna murder the guy that refused to do it.
Yeah, guys, there's 2 elements of this. The one that you're familiar with about the BS idea that Pence could have overturned the election, and we'll come back to that in a second. But the way more relevant part here is they were looking to murder your vice president. That's what hanging means. Okay, they were gonna hang Mike Pence. Well, not like a hanging Chad, but like a hanging person, as in executed, right? And he says, well, people were very angry. So he didn't condemn it at all, not one sentence, not one word. You heard it, there's the tape, right? And he said people were very angry, as if it was justified. And then he went on to explain why they were angry and further justify wanting to murder his own vice president. At no point did he say, oh my God, that's just atrocious. Of course I didn't intend that. Of course nobody intended that. Of course, it's just any word of like, well, it would have been a shame if they had actually put a noose around his neck and strangled him with it until he was dead. That would have been a shame, right? No, none of that, no remorse. And look, if you disagree with me, maybe murder is the right avenue to go down. That is unbelievable. That's unbelievable for almost anyone in a position of power in this country, let alone the former president of the United States talking about his own vice president. Now I'm gonna come back to why his whole idea that the Pence could have done something is so absurd. If you've never heard that argument, I just need to explain that to you a little bit later. But first, Nina, your reaction.
I mean, with friends like Donald J. Trump, God knows you definitely don't need any enemies. The man is a selfish megalomaniac. That's just it. That is part of his personality, his character trait, which is flawed. It is his MO. And he has been very consistent, sickeningly so consistent that this is all about him. Me. Even as the people who stormed the Capitol threatened to kill, as you laid out, Cenk, his vice president. I mean, how the hell could you continue to be vice president for this man? I'm sure this is not the first time that Mr. Pence saw these tendencies from Mr. Trump, but my God, you don't get no more deeper than saying, well, if they hang them, they hang them.
Yeah, on our side, if you so much as say that somebody takes a corporate contribution, everybody lose their mind like it was like a nuclear attack or something, right? Well, we're just stating a simple fact about politics. On their side, they're like, murder, should we murder each other? Is that okay, not okay? And apparently the jury's in on, yeah, for Trump, he thinks it's totally okay. And so this is the kind of violence that they're heading towards that is very, very dangerous. And guys, it's not hyperbole. They asked him, they were chanting, hang Mike Pence, kill him.
Yeah.
And he did not have a problem with it. That's unreal. And think about it in your own context. Imagine if somebody said about your partner or someone you work with, hey, they were gonna murder him because they thought you wanted that. Like, hey, they were gonna murder John because you thought that they wanted that. And then they came to me and they're like, well, how do you feel about that? I would feel very badly about it. I would feel awful, terrible. No, don't do that. Can you imagine how I was like, oh, I guess they were angry at John. What kind of a literal psycho?
Yeah.
A literal psycho would do that.
I told him we're gonna fit in one more story in the first hour, and he thought we should end early. It's common sense. You fit in one more story.
Common sense.
Yeah,
I mean, it's unthinkable in any other context. It's unthinkable in this context, most especially in this context. But I got to tell you, not the heart of this story. The heart of the story is apparently the guy that almost every Republican in the country looks up to, thinks murdering his political opponents is a fine idea, or certainly not one he objects to, okay?
Well, not even opponents, supporters.
Yeah, his own vice president.
Yeah.
Theoretically couldn't be any closer.
It's a new abnormal. It's a new abnormal in this Republican Party with Donald J. Trump.
So that's
really, and they cling to him. I mean, let's not forget, this man got so many votes. Was it 74 million or so?
Yeah.
Guys, I mean, it's such a great line by Nina, the new abnormal. It's so true. I mean, guys, I hate to do this because even using the John analogy was uncomfortable, but I need to shake people out of their complacency. Like, oh, right-wing fascism is coming, no big deal. If Joe Biden had said, oh, well, people were angry at Kamala Harris. That's why they were looking to execute her. Everybody rightfully would lose their minds. Like, what in the world? Biden would not condemn his own supporters trying to murder Kamala Harris? It would be unthinkable times a million.
Yeah.
Trump does it, everyone's like, oh yeah, that's the new abnormal. No problem.
Yeah, you can't just casually threaten to kill a female politician and get away with it unless you're Paul Gosar. And then we just move on and it's apparently fine.
Well, that point, John, Yeah,
there were so many crazy angles he could have gone on. He could have said, when Jonathan Karl's like, they said hang Mike Pence, he could have said, well, that was like one or two, doesn't represent them. Or he could have said, I don't believe it. Or he could have said, it was Antifa. He decided to agree with them. That is just maddening. There's a couple other interesting points of this. I'm curious what you think about a few of these. One is that, as we said, that interview was done back in March. We only are finding out about it now because Jonathan Karl's book Betrayal is about to come out. So again, he was sitting on that for about 6 months. Maybe it wouldn't have mattered. This is, as Nina says, the new abnormal. It probably wouldn't have mattered, but bear that in mind. In response to this revelation, a spokesperson for Pence declined to comment. They have nothing to say. And remember, I mean, this is worse than what Trump had previously said, I guess, on some level. It's in the same genre about Pence. And Pence has spoken favorably of him. Says, we sort of disagreed on whether I could unilaterally overturn election results, but I still look up to him. He's a great guy. He doesn't have anything to say about this after he agreed with the attempted assassins. And I just don't, there's literally nothing that he can do that will get them to turn on him. Like mocking your wife or whatever, saying that your father's an assassin or whatever, that, we moved past that years ago. But now threatening your life is not enough.
Yeah, so that's exactly what fascists do. It's not hyperbole. It is exactly what fascists do. They threaten to murder people they don't agree with, or they encourage their followers to murder them and talk about it in a positive way publicly. And guys, it's not, hey, oh, they were having a fun let's go Brandon chant at the ball game, right? No, it was hang Mike Pence, and they had brought nooses with them. It was a very real threat. Secret Service took it as a tremendous threat and barely got Pence out of the room. They missed him apparently by 1 to 2 minutes. Otherwise, they might have actually killed him. And by the way, if they had, right now, everybody would have said, oh, that's the new abnormal. No, that's okay. No, of course you're allowed to kill vice presidents because they make up rules, right? So can the vice president unilaterally ignore how the states voted and declare someone president? Right wing, be careful in your answer. Be careful in your answer. Yeah. Okay, so in reality, what it is the vice president in that role is a ceremonial role. He has no actual power, okay? It's in the Constitution, it's super clear. It's like throwing out the first pitch in the ball game, right? And Trump goes, oh, the guy throws out the first pitch, and then he didn't declare me the winner of the baseball game. What the hell, man? I should have won baseball. No, that's not how a ceremonial first pitch goes. And no, I don't care. Since he didn't declare me the winner, I want to execute the guy who threw the first pitch. That's insane. That's insane. Okay, now right-wingers are now mad at me. No, that's not insane. The vice president can definitely do that. Anytime he wants, just says, no, the other guy's president, right? Okay, great. The vice president now is Kamala Harris. I guess you could declare anyone president. She could declare me president. It doesn't matter, you just said there's no rules and that they have ultimate power in a democracy. We all vote, and then the vice president votes and says, I don't care about any of your votes. Voter one, I'll make anyone I like president. You really have to be maniacally stupid to believe that. Yeah. And if you do, thank you, I guess Democrats are gonna be president forever.
I mean, some people are, and John, back to a point you were making that Pence has not said, or I mean, one thing, I don't blame the man. Two things. I wish he would say something and stand up for himself and show that he got a little heart, but he hasn't. And then the other point is, he's probably too scared to say anything, because even if he spoke up now, even in the face of all the evidence, we rolled the tape or the audio tape, you could hear what President Trump had to say about his own vice president. The people who actually love and worship this man would probably still try to come at him. So he don't want none of that heat. Yeah. That's why there's no comment right now.
100% right, and that is exactly, again, how fascists win. Just, I swear to God, please read the history of Germany in the 1930s, okay? So a strong man arises, he gets vigilantes, they start threatening everybody in the streets. He publicly sanctions it, does not allow law enforcement to be used against them, but uses law enforcement in unfair ways against others. And then he starts to put away and then eventually kill his political opponents and his opponents in the media. And the whole time, can he do it? His own party, it capitulates to him completely, check, right? The other party is incredibly weak, check. And then the press can't figure out, oh, fascist or not fascist, 50-50, I can't figure it out. Yep. And boom, they take advantage of the new abnormal and we're all screwed. It is not a hypothetical, we're right in the middle of it right now. Trump is definitely a fascist, definitely a fascist. And by the way, you see us, all three of us are very progressive. You see any corporate Democrat or moderate Democrat or establishment Democrat talking like this? No, we're the strongest fighters against fascism. We're the strongest fighters against Republicans. And the rest of the Democrats, stand up and fight already. Jesus Christ, what are you, Mike Pence? Stand up and fight. We can't let the fascists take over.
Yeah,
that's it. And fascists rising, because 2024 is gonna be a doozy. And if it is not Donald J. Trump himself, it's gonna be somebody made in his image. You best believe.
Yeah. By the way, quick update. There had been a court judgment earlier this week that documents from the Trump administration would be handed over to the January 6th commission. That was appealed, and almost instantaneously earlier today it was blocked. So who knows, maybe it ends up at the Supreme Court, which he put multiple people on. But as of right now, those speeches and things like that he desperately didn't want them to get their hands on will now not be held over. So this is the process we had with so many things over the past few years, tax returns, all sorts of things. It's just years of appeals. And I'm sure nothing bad will happen in the meantime, that information potentially could have forestalled. Now, you want some other breaking news of the day?
Yes.
Okay. Not long before we went live, we found out that Steve Bannon has been indicted on 2 contempt charges over his lack of willingness to comply with a subpoena from the House investigation of January 6th. One contempt court is related to Mr. Bannon's refusal to appear for a deposition. The other is for his refusal to produce documents for the committee. And I think a lot of people had been wondering if the DOJ would actually do this. It had been recommended by the House, but whether the DOJ would actually act on it was a whole nother question. But this was a statement put out by Merrick Garland, the Attorney General. He said, "Since my first day in office, I have promised Justice Department employees that together we would show the American people by word and deed that the department adheres to the rule of law, follows the facts and the law, and pursues equal justice under the law. Today's charges reflect the department's steadfast commitment to these principles." And we don't know the timeline on this. Trials of this sort could take a year or longer. But as of right now, each count of contempt of Congress carries a minimum of 30 days and a maximum of 1 year in jail, as well as a fine of $100 to $1,000. Not much money, especially for a guy who is quite successful at scamming his followers out of large sums of money. So maybe that won't hurt him too much. He will be apparently turning himself in on Monday. It's cool when you're rich and powerful and you're charged with crimes. You can just say, "I'll be there in a few days, I guess." Maybe he'll have a fun weekend. Maybe he'll go to a resort or something, I don't know. But interestingly, also bear in mind, Mark Meadows also didn't show up for his deposition with the House Select Committee. And so could he be facing the same sorts of contempt charges? He's doing the exact same thing. I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, so what does Steve Bannon know about January 6th? Is he a relevant witness? Let's start there. Number one, he was in the so-called war room of Trump supporters in the Willard Hotel in Washington as the attack was unfolding, and they were reacting apparently to beforehand, afterwards. So what were they doing? Maybe it's perfectly innocuous. Oh my God, they're rioting. We didn't expect that. Let's try to stop it. If that's the case, okay, great. Then we'll get the documents and then he'll be acquitted, right? Or well, not of the subpoena, but overall in the January 6th investigation, he'll be cleared. He didn't do anything wrong. But if they're talking about, okay, good, let's then have him head to the Capitol, and then if they have to break in, they have to break in. By the way, that sounds. I'd be surprised if they were that clear and they were that blunt. So that's why I genuinely say I don't know, right? But we do know this. In his podcast the day before, he said on January 6th, quote, "all hell was going to break loose." Okay, so he apparently knew that some sort of hell was gonna break loose. So what kind of hell was it, right? And what did they plan? And he's talking with Trump on the phone. So these are all very relevant questions. Now, can he ignore a lawful subpoena? First of all, let's answer it this way. Can you ignore a lawful subpoena? Hell no is the answer. You would definitely be in prison and you'd be in a world of trouble, okay? Now for him, he says, well, I'm an elite right-winger. I'm above the law. I don't have to follow this law that's meant for black people and others, right? And the answer is no, that's not the case. He says, well, I have executive privilege, okay? Well, executive privilege is for people that work in the White House in their communications with the president. But Steve Bannon didn't work in the White House. Steve Bannon hadn't worked in the White House for 3 years. Steve Bannon had been fired by the president. That seems to be a really weak case for executive privilege, okay? He said, well, I talked to Trump and Trump says I should have it. Oh, really, does he? But that's not a thing when a former president can say, hey, I talked to Bob. I think Bob should be privileged for the rest of his life to never share any of our conversations, even if it was about crimes. Me and Bob might have talked about how we were gonna murder someone, which by the way is plausible given what he just said about Mike Pence, right? But I'm not going to tell you that, and Bob is not allowed to tell you that for the rest of his life. That's not a thing. That's not a law. That's not a rule. You just made that up. And soon we're gonna find out in court if they made it up, and you're gonna see that they did. Yeah.
In Trump's world, Jake, everything you just said does exist. He believes that he does have that kind of power. And the fact that Bannon was fired for 3 years certainly did not officially work for the White House, but you best believe he is the Trump whisperer extraordinaire. And it is going to be very telling what comes through all of this. So the fact that for the January 6th, commission, this definitely shows that they have some power, and it should send chills up the spines of others who are in waiting.
Yeah. And by the way, there are a number of others who've been subpoenaed. We mentioned Mark Meadows there. We'll have to see what happens with him. Of course, all of them have an incentive to, at the very least, refuse to show up until there are charges. I guess they want to show that they're loyal to Donald Trump. I mean, you heard what we talked about in the first block. If you just willingly abide by the subpoena and provide documents, what's Donald Trump gonna say about you? What are his followers gonna think about you after that? And it makes me think about a video earlier this week of Stephen Miller, who was being interviewed by Laura Ingraham while standing in seemingly a graveyard, oddly enough. And he was asked, will you comply with the subpoena? And twice he just like laughed, mimicking a regular human and saying, I haven't gotten the documents. He wouldn't answer the question. She concluded that he was saying no, but he never actually answered the question. And I wonder now, in hindsight, was he waiting to see if something like this would happen? It's been a few weeks of Steve Bannon not complying. Was he just wondering what would happen? And understand that, of course, they have less legal cover than they did before. I mean, Steve Bannon has already been pardoned for some crimes that were just beginning to be investigated. He was pardoned by Trump after scamming something like $1 million+ out of Trump supporters' pockets for his own personal benefit, to buy a yacht for his buddy and stuff like that. It's weird that that didn't bother the MAGA world, but anyway, he's not gonna get pardoned off of this, not unless they drag this case out for 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a couple of funny things and a couple of important things. Yeah, MAGA world's like, oh, he ripped us off. Yeah, Trump said it's okay to rip us off. Oh yeah. And then we're not supposed to say that you're unintelligent. We're supposed to say, oh well, good, they could be pretty geniuses. They say, oh yeah, here, take my money. Oh, you ripped me off. You got a yacht. Oh yeah, what? Come on, guys, come on. Okay, all right. So now the most important part here is Bannon is saying, I'm not gonna follow the law for 2 reasons. Number one, they genuinely have an entitlement complex. They think equality under the law is a joke. And they think, come on, the law doesn't really apply to us, right? We're privileged. They don't think of it in terms of like consciously have a conversation with one another over tea and crumpets. Oh, I'm privileged, are you privileged? Oh yes, I do declare, right? No, but they just genuinely are surprised. And it goes down like the January 6th rioters. They're like, what? Well, I was just breaking and entering. What's the big deal? I just smashed a bunch of things and hit a bunch of cops. But what? What? I'm allowed to go in there and do that and take over my government, aren't I?
One of the good ones.
Yeah. And by the way, they do shootings and they go, what? Second Amendment rights, what? Like, because they've been told Second Amendment rights is you're allowed to kill anyone you like. Or you call it self-defense or stand your ground. And so but the second part's even scarier. They're testing the boundary of the law to see if anyone's going to stop them. In fact, this is amazing. Steve Bannon, right before he was indicted, was on the air saying this. I'm gonna give you this quote, okay? First, there's a funny part. He says, and we're gonna get to the bottom of 3 November. What is 3 November? That's not a thing, okay? November 3rd is a thing. The 3rd of November is kind of a thing. 3 November is not a thing. Anyway, we're gonna get to the bottom of 3 November and we're gonna decertify the electors, okay? And you're gonna have a constitutional crisis. But you know what? We're a big and tough country and we can handle that. We'll be able to handle that. We'll get through that. He's saying we are going to create a constitutional crisis by brazenly breaking the law repeatedly and doing something totally outrageous, which is to try to reverse a presidential election a year later. It is totally like it's not even close to the Constitution. It's not on the same planet as the United States Constitution. And he knows that that's why he says we're gonna do a constitutional crisis by doing something that is not in the Constitution. And then we're gonna see if they have the nerve to stop us. And if they don't stop us, that's it. We just did a coup. And that means we could just use violence and force and just ignore the law when it comes to us. He said that right before he got indicted. He didn't even know that he had been indicted. And when asked, and he always said in the paragraph before about a critique of this law breaking, he said, quote, suck on this, okay? So now the question, and it is a very, very important, it's a critical question. Do we have rule of law in this country? If we are weak and we say to fascists, no, you can break any law you like and you could tear up our Constitution and do a violent coup against our democracy, the fascists will definitely win. You think it can't happen here? That's what they thought in Germany, that's what they thought in Italy, that's what they thought everywhere where fascism won. It can definitely happen here. Right. We must draw the line. And the line is really simple. What's the law today? Enforce the goddamn law.
Yeah.
That's it. We're screwed if they don't do this. He must be made an example of. He is not above the law. Mr. Trump is not above the law. None of his minions are above the law. These people are not above the law, and they must be brought to justice for this behavior.
Yeah. Related news, by the way, the individual who brought more than a dozen Molotov cocktails to the Capitol on January 6th pleaded guilty earlier today. You know, just normal tourist stuff. Just bring in some Molotov cocktails. Anyway, we should probably take our first break. But when we come back, Joe Manchin taking a shot at unions. Not a big fan. We'll show you about it after this. Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one.
Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor, or concern for whose toes we might step on, or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
How in the world are you going to get the right to vote if you don't already have the right to vote? That's impossible. Reason they tell you things are impossible is because they don't want you to try. It only took 7 years for them to get an amendment to get a right to vote.
Does this result in millions upon millions of Americans losing their coverage? And we've been waiting to find out, and now we know, yes, it will cut millions.
Public education was supposed to be the way to equalize everyone regardless of their socioeconomic status. But if you come from a family that's poor, how are you going to afford grade school for your kids?
This fight is about fairness and morality. It's about the American values.
You think that black people all across the country, in every city, were all lying when they said the police abuse and the police kill us when they should? No, of course they weren't lying. Yes, it does happen. Yes, they do get targeted more.
Why are we going to put immigrants in prison for 5 years, which American taxpayers have to pay for, if we're so concerned with immigrants using up our so-called resources?
We're gonna do both. We're gonna fight Trump and we're gonna fight the establishment. It's not that hard. Yes, you can do both at the same time. Go tell them.
ShopTYT.com has new shirts like this one. And you're thinking, Cenk, what is that one? I can't see it other than the black. Yes, so I'll show it to you. If you can read this, you're not practicing social distancing. Yes! Now, you were practicing social distancing. This is over video. But overall, you get it. ShopTYT.com.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, John, and Nina with you guys. All right, John, take it away.
Okay, I apologize, everybody. It's Friday, but we're gonna make you look at a picture of Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin is once again making American politics all about himself. This time, he's got his sights set on unions. He's not happy with a tax credit designed to benefit union car companies. And so there's this legislation in the House that would provide customers with a tax credit of $7,500 for new electric vehicles. In years past, there's been versions of this tax credit. What they want to do, though, was do an additional $4,500 credit if the vehicle's made in the United States by union workers. You know, it's the sort of thing that they all pretend they want until money actually enters the picture. Joe Manchin objected to this particular tax credit. And for once, he actually went on the record talking about what he's intending to do. He said, when I heard about this, what they were putting in the bill, I went right to the sponsor, Senator Debbie Stabenow, and I said, this is wrong. This can't happen. It's not who we are as a country. It's not how we built this country, and the product should speak for itself. We shouldn't use everyone's tax dollars to pick winners and losers. If you're a capitalist economy, that we're in a society, then you let your product speak for itself, and hopefully we'll get that. That'll be corrected. Bear in mind, he is fresh off of manipulating the entire reconciliation process to make sure that none of the legislation in any way negatively impacts his investment in the coal industry. But again, politicians shouldn't be picking winners or losers, except presumably they're the potential loser. So in theory, this would not only give people who aren't as wealthy the ability to buy electric cars that have generally only been available to people with more means, but it would also incentivize those being made by union companies. And in fact, if you provide this tax credit, then maybe some of these companies won't be as terrified about the prospect of their workforces unionizing if they know that it's going to produce years of more demand for their product by the American population. But Joe Manchin's basically president, so maybe this thing's already dead.
So he gave this speech at Toyota, which does not unionize its workers. So, gee, I wonder if he collected checks from them afterwards. Probably not, wink. Dark money, super PACs, Chamber of Commerce, all working with Toyota. Oh, golly gee, no. You know, if there's one thing we know about Joe Manchin, he does not want to pick winners and losers. He doesn't want the government doing that. So let me show you some examples of whether we actually do that or not. Let's go to graphic 4 here. Conservative estimates put US direct subsidies to the fossil fuel industry at roughly $20 billion per year, with 20% currently allocated to coal, which Joe Manchin is invested in, and 80% to natural gas and crude oil. So that is, subsidies are the government saying, here, have this money. That's taxpayer money. $20 billion goes to the industry strangling the planet. And Manchin has the nerve to say, because he thinks there's no press in America. He thinks the press is not actual journalists, there is lapdogs, and he's generally correct. So he says brazen things like, we don't want to pick winners and losers. Full well knowing he's sending $20 billion to his friends in the fossil fuel industry, which includes himself. In fact, let's show you a sample year here. Let's go to a chart of the year 2016. Oh, look at that, renewable energy is cute. That's in the green. That is the subsidies being sent to them. Because it's a new industry, you want to support it in the beginning so that he can get his legs under it, and that's why you give them a little bit of subsidies. And that makes sense, and that used to happen for the oil industry about 100 years ago. Oh, look, it still does. And at a much, much higher number to this day, even though the people that are getting that tan and black bars, the much, much higher bar of money, they're among the most profitable companies in the world. Why are we sending them extra subsidies to do a thing that is already intensely profitable, let alone destroying the environment and the planet? And well, I asked why, so I'm gonna answer the question for you guys, which leads me to graphics here, number 9. Let's go to 8 actually. Oh, here's a report by TYT Investigates. Manchin's call haul tops $5 million. Over the last 10 years, he has made more than $5 million from his own coal company, which he sends subsidies to while giving speeches about, we don't want to pick winners and losers here with the government, right? He literally pays himself. He picks himself as the winner. The corruption of these politicians knows no bounds, but we continue. The senator earned $491,949 in dividends just last year. as journalist Alex Koch reported this summer. So that's TYT and Daily Poster confirming the same number. That's $500,000 he makes every single year from coal. And then of course there are the donations. Over his career, Joe Manchin, this is not even the dark money. This is just stuff that we know about. Oil and gas has given him $1,072,857, and mining has given him $853,998. So about $2 million. Gee, I wonder why they send $20 billion to fossil fuel industry in subsidies, because he just got bribed $2 million for his campaigns. That's why. It's very simple. It's bribery, it's corruption, but he brazenly mocks the rest of us because he knows there are no real reporters in the country. And finally, career donations to Joe Manchin from the energy and natural resources sector. That's even higher at $2.8 million. So there you have it. That's how bribery works in America. And the politicians gleefully lie to you, thinking mainstream media is on our side. They're never gonna tell you the truth, so I can lie to you all day long. Nina.
And adding to that, that is an example of picking and choosing winners. You know, all the things that Manchin said that we don't do as a country, and that's not how we made. No, that's exactly how it's done in the United States of America, picking and choosing. And Manchin has been picking and choosing for a very long time. He decided that the B to the third power was not the way to go, that the BIF was the way to go. He picked and chose, along with some other folks, that particular bill over the bill that would have the most impact on the people who had the greatest needs. He wants means testing for programs that should not be means tested. That's picking and choosing. And you know what? This man is playing a dangerous game, and they're allowing him to continue to do that. That 50-50 split in the Senate is real, and the filibuster is real. They must get rid of the filibuster, because Joe Manchin is going to continue to be the shadow president all the way through the end of this thing on things that we need the most, because he's gonna have these kind of temper tantrums all the way through the process, straight through 2024.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing, like a couple of $1 million? Think about that as an investment. How much would they have to put into like discovering new sources of oil to make $20 billion in 1 year? But instead they buy someone cheap like Joe Manchin or whatever. It's amazing that we let them do it. And that for most politicians, it's that form of corruption, and then it's also they're planning for after, when they finally leave office, assuming they're not one of those who sticks around until they're 95 or whatever. They'll do speeches, or they'll sit on a board, or they'll become a lobbyist themselves or whatever. But Joe Manchin, he isn't even content to just do those two totally accepted forms of corruption. He's also directly benefiting himself financially every single year. And if you're lucky, as you pointed out, a couple journalists will talk about it, but it's not really a big story. The media talks constantly about Joe Manchin's influence on this process. They almost never acknowledge it. If they talk about him owning the coal company, that's the story. It's never mentioned in relation to what he's doing. His motivations are never questioned. Axios had a story about, inflation seems like it's buttressing Manchin's point. Okay, so that's what he said. I get it. You have there's no other potential motivations. You can't read anything about the actions he's made financially to tie into that. And it's just disappointing that the American people care so little and the journalists talk about it so little too.
Yeah, so last two things on that. Speaking of picking winners and losers, the media picks winners and losers. So they take Manchin, they call him a moderate. And that sounds amazing, right? That sounds great. What a reasonable person, he's a moderate. They say he's listening to the will of his voters and there's nothing he can do. The polling indicates that statement is a flat out lie. Every poll from West Virginia shows that Build Back Better is intensely popular, and the provisions that Manchin is against are the most popular in West Virginia. Yeah. Yet, the mainstream media picks a winner, Joe Manchin, because they agree with his corporate agenda, and they say he is the moderate, he is the one that represents the voters. Now, progressives, on the other hand, say no, the voters actually really want paid family leave. They really want lower drug prices. It polls at nearly 90%. And we're gonna fight really hard so the voters can get more. And right after the vote, the media comes out and says the progressives were trying to deny voters. But do you have any idea how many calls they got in their districts? I know this for a fact, because the voters listened to the media and the media told them, the progressives screwed you and they voted no on the help you desperately need, they're the most right wing. Come on, Jesus Christ. They don't say the most right wing, but they imply it as if being against the incredibly weak package, the corporate package put together by Democratic leadership means you're right wing, not left wing. That you wanted less for the voters instead of more. So our media is a giant problem in this country. Maybe the single biggest problem in this country. It's corporate media for only corporate interests. And then finally, let's also note that Joe Manchin, who his whole career has been lying that his #1 concern is jobs in West Virginia, and how, my God, he's looking out for the workers of West Virginia, not for his corrupt coal baron friends, which includes himself. No, the workers. Now he says unionized. No, I don't want, that's not the American way. Then they would have higher wages. No, we don't want that. No, you crush the workers so your donors win, or your owner donors win.
Yeah.
Right? And so understand who these corrupt corporate Democrats are.
That's right. And back to the media, Jink, I mean, the working class lens is totally missing. So unless it's independent media like us at TYT and some others, or they invite one of us on, you are hard pressed to see or hear the narrative of anything political, especially through the eyes of working class people.
Yeah.
That narrative, that frame matters, but we don't get that frame. And the other point that you continue to make, and everybody should just come on with us, say this with us, the progressives, i.e. in this particular situation, the squad was fighting for more for the American people, not less.
Yeah, don't let mainstream media lie to you. They have a very obvious corporate agenda.
My final point, one more person who picks winners and losers. So Nancy Pelosi had said before they did that vote, well, we can't force a vote on reconciliation yet, because what if the moderates vote against it? But we'll do the one on the bipartisan one, even though the squad is saying they'll vote against that. So she chose which one could be pitched as voting against the entire process. She could have put up the reconciliation one. We had an agreement that you do both simultaneously. And then Sinema and Manchin presumably either would have actually gone along with it in the end, or would have to be the ones stopping the process from moving forward. But she chose who gets to be portrayed as being a roadblock to this aid.
Another example of picking winners and losers.
Exactly. At the bidding of your owner donors.
And if you're a progressive in Congress and you think Nancy Pelosi's your friend, right after she threw you under the bus, just like we told you she would, you should rethink that.
100%. Okay, we have to take our last break of the hour, but when we come back, a lot of people quitting their jobs. There's some good explanations as to why that's happening, and then there are some others which we'll show you after this.
You know, old school's pitched to me from Cenk. It'll just be me, you, Jesus, Ben, and maybe Michael. And we're like, okay, cool. I can do that every week. As you can see, me, Jesus, Ben.
When you make the order, it says, don't exceed $20.01. So I'll just order literally anything to get it as close to that as I possibly can.
I'm sorry that I ordered $45 worth of food and got an email saying, sir, would you like to rethink that? What are you talking about?
I was in hell. I was just like, oh my God, the theater's empty, nobody's here. Everyone on screen keeps fucking cursing. Why did I let this happen? And the whole thing looks like it was shot through a glass of milk. My mom's gonna be so mad.
If you're looking for a heart attack, the short way, baby.
Wrong, I did put mayonnaise on it. I'm the most in shape, overweight person you'll find.
That's right.
He was like, why didn't you answer my call? I called you 39 times.
Yuck.
But what makes you stop right before 40? You know, what makes you say, nah, man, I ain't doing that no more. I'm cool.
And I called you back on the air. And I was like, okay, Kevin Smith, big shot. What the you said you'd come on and you didn't come on.
I'm sure I took that very well.
Yeah, you did. You called me back the next day and said, I thought it was 7 a.m. There's now deep fake porn. I don't know if you guys have heard of this.
Heard of it? I just had some in the car.
I'll tell you who I'm not f***ing, Ben Mankiewicz.
Have you guys ever felt that?
Not ever.
And now it's just the three of us.
This is the intimate hour.
By the way, the last half hour of this, we're not even rolling.
Fair enough.
Kingsley.
See, I watch movies.
I'm done with both of you.
Once Greg starts laughing, I can't stop. And I was just gonna ask you about getting high.
Snoogans, Snoochie Boochies, and members, of course, you can get the whole damn thing. TYT.com, join and free trial. I'm old school with the old folks.
Good
John, come back.
Get ready for it.
Field goal here. It's time to switch to music.
Oh, man.
Oh, God.
Do your best.
He's a little like...
Oh. No one's happy now.
Give him another try.
Oh. Wow.
This is the weirdest game.
I'm Brett. I would like to refer to this segment as the Do I Still Have This Talent show. So I want to see if I can play harmonica without my hands. I don't know why I have that. Nothing's gonna be more impressive than that. I can also spin a basketball on my finger. While drinking. I'm gonna spin a basketball on my finger while drinking apple juice. You can do this, dude. It's also flat. I don't know if that helps or hurts. And it seems to be somewhat wobbly. Ta-da! Nope, I don't know how to do this one. This one's a fail. Nope. Oh God, I'm so mad.
Back on TYT, Cenk, John, and Nina with you guys. John, forward.
Okay, let's do this. A record number of Americans actually quit their jobs in September. The percentage who handed in their notice actually was up to 3%, reflecting that 4.4 million people quit their jobs in September, according to a government report on Friday. The number of unfilled jobs remained at 10.4 million in October, bucking expectations that job openings would decline slightly during the month. So this now requires some sort of explanation. Why is it that these numbers are so high? Well, there's a lot of potential theories. Some say that Americans are switching jobs for better pay, that of course they're not quitting their jobs and then just going and living in the mountains or anything. They're quitting their jobs and transitioning to a different job. Some starting their own businesses or continuing to struggle with childcare and school schedules as the pandemic lingers. Now, let's not linger on the childcare thing, because then presumably that's a crisis that needs to be fixed, perhaps in the reconciliation bill, and there's some powerful interests that aren't interested in that at all. Some people are saying inflation is a big part of this, and in fact, inflation last month increased by 6.2%, the highest in over 30 years, a factor in lowering real hourly wages, according to the Labor Department, which experienced a 0.5% decrease from September to October. So what are your wages actually worth? Well, part of it is going to depend on what you spend money on. Different sorts of products are rising at different rates. But some of the ones that are most commonly cited include gas, which reached a 7-year high. So it's not, a 50-year high or anything, heads up to CNN, but it is a 7-year high. That said, some in the mainstream media have specific theories about why inflation is going up. So here is Stephanie Ruhle and her idea.
I am going to laugh at this idea that the infrastructure bill is going to help with inflation. All it's going to do is create more jobs. We don't have enough people to fill our current jobs. And this argument, there are going to be jobs at higher wages are one of the contributing factors to inflation.
Well, they're being honest. I mean, they don't like to, they like to pretend that they don't have a bias, but clearly there is a bias, and the bias is against higher wages.
So I want to note a couple of things here. That is on MSNBC. That is a theoretical left-wing channel in Washington. In Washington, they think, well, a bunch of liberals, they're crazy, right? So she is saying, the problem with Biden's agenda is it's gonna create too many jobs. All it's gonna do is create more jobs. Well, you guys don't want that, do you? And then she points to the labor shortage as like, oh no, we have a problem in this country, the labor shortage. And so we don't want to create more jobs. No, but if we create more jobs, what does that do? It drives wages up, which actually affects your life in an incredibly positive way. But then the second half of her statement is, oh my God, the masses now have money to spend. They're actually beginning to get a livable wage? No, that's gonna drive up inflation. And that could affect my stock portfolio. Everyone on screen here has stock portfolios. And it could affect us negatively if you can actually make a living with dignity and then hold your head up high. You have higher wages? No, you're the problem. You're driving up inflation. That's on the liberal channel in Washington. Nina.
I'm just stunned. A lot of economists, I mean, they're talking about, some people are talking about this wrong, and Manchin is part of the problem, plus what we just heard there, is that you gotta alleviate a lot of the inflation that is happening right now, according to some economists, is due to COVID and supply chain related pressures. If in fact we want to drive it down, it's not that the Biden administration wants to put too much money into the economy. We need more money into the economy. So in walks the B to the third power, to build back better. If in fact you want people to really get back to work, what was in Build Back Better? Oh, let me think about that. Universal pre-K, universal child care, elder care. You have to make more investments in the physical and human infrastructure. It is the opposite of what these people are talking about, and pay people higher wages and make more investments. A lot of economists say that this is the way to go.
Yeah, and by the way, they're doing what they were doing before during the negotiations, pretending that I don't know, what's even left of it, like 1.7 trillion. Well, that all happens on day one, which is a huge amount of money to come flooding into. No, it's over a literal decade that we would be doing this. But let's pretend it's all instantaneous and pretend that it would worsen rather than alleviate inflation. Let's also pretend that it's in any way rational, makes sense for a news network that is trying to get regular people to watch it to continually treat the interests of working people as some sort of major inconvenience, as if them having a choice of which job to work for, them having a little bit more free money is objectively, obviously a bad thing for the only people that actually matter, which are those who own the corporations. And look, none of what they're saying is actually true, or at the very least demonstrated, but it is useful for them, not just in a general sense to put forward these narratives, but specifically to do so now. I mean, I don't think it's gonna be difficult for you to guess where the people on that panel come down on what should be done in regards to Build Back Better, and certainly how big it should be, and certainly when it should be passed. So at a time when we find out from Axios that Manchin may delay the social spending plan over inflation, all this inflation is really playing into his argument there. Well, what do you know? Now the media is all saying inflation, 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 Build Back Better, it's gonna be worse. They're just running cover for Joe Manchin's BS argument as to why, once again, we should never help people.
So these corporations, they just don't want Build Back Better to pass. They already got their bill. The infrastructure bill was a giant pork project for corporations. They love that. That's why they got Manchin and the Republicans. The Republicans work with the Democrats for the first time. Why? Because their owner donors told them, shut up and vote for that bill. That's got billions of dollars that we're gonna take, okay? And so now Build Back Better is for you. So all of Washington has turned against it, including corporate media. And they have good cop, bad cop. Fox News is the bad cop. MSNBC theoretically is the good cop. But they all agree, oh my God, if your wages are higher, that would be terrible for America. And so now the lies in regards to inflation. So they did that segment. And they would briefly touch on the actual points, right, of why it's actually, but then they would go pivot immediately. The propaganda is amazing the way they do it. They will say, oh, well, OPEC, right? But they mention it for about 5 seconds. So that's the oil producing countries that right now are actively raising prices. That is the reason why gas prices are going. The number one reason that gas prices are going up. There's no question about that. Everybody agrees to it. But they mention it for 5 seconds and they go, oh, that's why you can't pass that bill. Wait a minute, that bill has nothing to do with OPEC. And OPEC's the number one reason for gas prices. So you took a thing that was true and you twisted it to support a thing that isn't true. And then the supply chain issues are the main reason why, or a huge reason why we're having inflation. But that has nothing to do with the Build Back Better bill. That has nothing to do with paid family leave. That has nothing to do with lower drug prices. Nothing to do with any of that, right? But all 4 people on, no, that's not true. Furman, who used to work with the Obama administration, said you should pass Build Back Better. But the 4 of them were generally aghast at the inflation. And oh my God, and they took turns defending different corporations. And including the former Democratic Senator Heidi Heitkamp from North Dakota, talking about oil. We need oil. I mean, we need to produce more oil. We need to get more oil, and we need to take a shower in oil. I mean, corporate media is a total and utter joke now. To the people who work there, it's got to be humiliating. Finally, they mentioned the Fed. And they're saying the Fed should raise rates and that would lower inflation. That again is true, okay? But they don't mention the number one problem with the Fed that led to the inflation in the first place. Printing trillions of dollars of money and handing it to corporations, which they've now done several different times. Overflow of money into the economy creates inflation. But that is inconvenient for them. So they say, oh, no, when they give trillions to the corporations, that's great. That's the responsible American way, okay? That's what you do. You just print the money, you hand it to the corporations who bribe you. That's what you do, right? Oh, now you got higher wages. God damn it. Okay, hey, we're MSNBC, we're the left-wing channel.
This is fully not, I mean, it's exhausting. It really is, because it's full. Many people have come to expect or to accept that the poor, the working poor, and the barely middle class don't deserve relief, don't deserve to live in dignity, don't deserve to live a happy life. So they're always the scapegoat. So those things that benefit them, which in this case, in this moment, would have been be to the third power. We ain't got time for that. That in lies the problem. And what we are saying is that we are damn tired of people in elected office, and then these people who have audiences talking to millions of people every single day, giving the short end of the stick, always to the people who have the greatest needs in this country. It really is exhausting and a damn shame.
All right, John, let's squeeze in the last story here as quickly as we can.
Sorry, I was just thinking about that promise that they're totally gonna get around to passing it. He made a promise behind closed doors of Biden, come on.
They're not.
Nobody would screw for Biden. Think about how he'd blow up, he'd be so mad.
Oh, and by the way, I'm sure they're gonna all hold Biden accountable later. Oh, we trusted you, Joe, and then you didn't deliver. Yeah. That's a statement that's never gonna come out other than from-
Give us that wink, Jink, your famous wink.
Getting Agatha vibes. Okay, let's briefly jump through this last story.
It was me all along.
I love that I can make a reference like that and you'll get it, okay. A defense attorney for one of the men accused of murdering Ahmaud Arbery had an issue with certain types of people being in the courtroom while the case is going on. Take a look at this video.
Serially bringing these people in to sit with the victim's family one after another. Obviously, there's only so many pastors they can have. And if their pastor's Al Sharpton right now, that's fine, but then that's it. We don't want any more black pastors coming in here or other Jesse Jackson, whoever was in here earlier this week, sitting with the victim's family, trying to influence a jury in this case. And I'm not saying the state is even aware that Mr. Sharpton was in the courtroom. I certainly wasn't aware of it till last night. But I think the court can understand my concern about bringing people in who really don't have any ties to this case other than political interests.
Okay, so this is a guy who admits that he hadn't even noticed that these pastors were in the room. And if you find that hard to believe, he also didn't notice that saying we don't want any more black pastors might sound kind of bad. And that's one of the guys defending one of those charged with killing Ahmaud Arbery. So this is already a case that has a number of different issues and a number of different incredibly discriminatory aspects to it. And now you have that random weird outburst.
So Ahmaud Arbery was jogging in the neighborhood when 3 white men chased him down with shotguns and killed him. And there were 12 potential black jurors within the jury pool. They all just happened to eliminate 11 of them, and there's only 1 black person on the jury. And now on top of that, defense says we don't want any black pastors around here. I mean, I guess they're saying like, we think we got the right jury. We can say anything we want. It doesn't matter. Yeah, around these parts. So it reminds me of that line from the movie Mississippi Burning, when the crooked racist sheriff says, "You ain't in America, you're in Mississippi now," right? And so and then we're supposed to say, "Oh no, I bet black people in this country are going to get justice." And then to add insult to injury, he's like, they got Jesse Jackson, or maybe they don't, I don't know. They're all the same, right? Sharpton, Jackson. We just don't want the black pastors in here. That's it. I mean, he couldn't be any clearer.
Yeah, this is America. I mean, I'm about to leap out of my skin. This is America. The blacks. There's too many of the blacks in there. Treating this as if it was political. Look, Reverend Sharpton was invited by the Arbery family to be there. You damn right this is political. It's political. It's social, it's about justice. It is. It's all of those things all at once. Just what century are we living in? Because you could have played this in the 20th century or the 19th century. Yeah. I mean, these people, oh my God, I can't cuss. So I'm gonna call on Black Jesus right now. That's what I'm going to do. Call on Black Jesus, because no other Jesus will do in this situation. It must be the Black Jesus with the sandals on to handle this kind of situation. But this is how these people think. Between that defense attorney and the judge, we're in trouble.
Yep. Yeah. The defense attorney would probably say, "We don't want any Black Jesus around here.
We don't want no Black Jesus." I
didn't even know Black Jesus was in here. It's not me. I'm just saying we don't want any more Black Jesuses.
I was about to say that Black Jesus would
right.
be
He's
alive.
Like, I don't know if it's
that's the Jesus I call on when it really gets rough. The Black Jesus.
And he's like, I don't know if it was Black Moses, Black Jesus. All I saw was black. That's all I ever see. So unfortunately,
Welcome
Nina's
to
right.
America.
Yeah, the Mississippi Burning quote is incorrect. The problem is it is America, right? Mm-hmm. And so, guys, I'm gonna say one last thing about it. Can you please, for folks who aren't black, can you just step into their shoes for 1 second, right? I'm asking for empathy. Imagine you go walking in your neighborhood or jogging in your neighborhood, and people see you, and just because of how you look, they think, "Oh, that guy's a threat, and we should chase him down with a shotgun and probably kill him." Just because of how you look, you didn't do anything wrong. It's your neighborhood, you're jogging, and they think we should kill that guy because he's a danger, imminent danger to us. How do you put up with this?
I'm sorry, in any small transgression is then multiplied thousands of times if you are black. I mean, you can talk to black people, especially of another generation, but it's still happening today. You go into a store, they're following you, they're watching you, because it is assumed that if you are black, in most instances, you are up to no good. And that is exactly what these men assumed. They also knew that they could hunt him down and try their damnedest to get away with it. It is in the psychology of America, and we must deal with it. So even going to the grocery store, look, just the stressors, the microaggressions, just every single day of being black. Folks can't imagine that if you are not. You might be able to imagine it, but you just don't get it. You live with this kind of thing from the smallest to what happened to Arbery, which is the extreme. Every single day of your natural life.
Yeah, I mean, for right-wingers, when you talk about white people in the past, they say, how dare you? You're discriminating against me because you talked about a guy from 100 years ago. When we say, hey, folks are discriminating against black people right now, they're judging them today. Can you not relate to that? Because you're so worried about your ancestor being judged from 100 years ago. How about them being judged right now in the store, in the streets, at a barbecue, mowing the lawn, going to an Airbnb, on and on and on, right? No, that's not a problem, I don't care.
Yep.
Well, that's the problem we have in this country. We have to somehow close that divide, but it doesn't look like we're anywhere close right now. Okay,
we're gonna keep trying though.
Yes, we should definitely keep trying. Absolutely right.
Yeah, we can't.
Yes, we gotta be hopeful. All right, Nina, you're the best. Senator Nina Turner, check her out on Damage Report on Tuesday. And we had a great power hour last night. Everybody check that out, tyt.com/join and become a member, or hit the join button below and check out Power Hour, that's for members. And then-
Indisputable too, don't forget, I'm on with Dr. Richie, the one and only.
Yes, 100%, indisputable. Nina's on every week, so check that out as well. And then one other programming note, I'm interviewing Jamal Bowman on Monday at 5:30 p.m. So right before the Young Turks, make sure you're checking out the conversation. Nina's interviewed Ben Jealous and Noam Chomsky and Cornel West. You should also sign up for that podcast. But Representative Jamal Bowman, one of the brave 6 who voted no on the bill, is going to be on the conversation on Monday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, more news.
We're very honest that we're progressives. We call the Young Turks home of progressives, and we support progressive candidates.
There has been this reemergence of political activism, especially among young people.
This weekend was the second Women's March, both across the US and across the world. So these people are not simply marching, they're not simply talking, they're also running for office. And when they do run, they're gonna make a difference.
Joe Crowley is congressman from New York. He's very powerful. Why? He raised a lot of money. But there's someone finally challenging him.
We need to have representation that advocates as fiercely for working class people as possible from this seat.
If candidates like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez even get a little bit of media attention outside of what the Young Turks does, they have an excellent chance of winning.
She's gonna win, she's gonna win.
68% reporting.
The majority of Americans want Medicare for all. So I don't care what you and your corporate cronies want. What I care about is what the American people want.
We believe in total change. Everything runs on donor money. And that is what we will fight, and that is exactly why they don't like us.
We're having fun, it's election night.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has defeated Joe Crowley.
Here we go again.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Crowley. Down goes Crowley. Down goes Manafort. Down goes Cohen.
Women came out in record numbers in the primaries.
They said you'll be lucky to get one candidate. We now have 12 that have won their primaries.
Bezos and Amazon announcing that they are going to go to a 15-hour minimum wage.
We're making progress. Let's keep going.
Many of these women made history.
The biggest victories, all women of color. Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, Sharice Davids and Deb Haaland.
And I want to go to Congress because I want to change those things.
I'm calling it. Jamal Bowman has won. Down goes Engel. Down goes Engel.
For a long time, we have not had progressives in power. It's going to be something to behold.
Welcome to Happy Hour, everybody. After a week of soul-crushing news, we break out the good stuff. Good news, good videos, good people, and of course, drink good alcohol. That's the worst thing I've ever had.
This is the best show.
Full disclosure, we did do a shot right before the show began. It says,
let's
flamingo.
Flamingo.
The reason you had trouble with that word is it's not a word. Okay, this is the one of everything.
I've got a rash. Could I just put it on that to see if it'll take it off?
What did you used to think this was?
Bull piss.
Drink it, swallow it, spit it. Oh, that's needed after a day like this. Cheers to Brett Ehrlich. Climax. Uranus smells like farts. Because of course it does. This is the worst sketch ever of a perp. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They found the guy. This is Sophie's super happy dog story of the week.
This dog is so precious and deserves the world. I'm just not drinking that beer.
Here's my dog. This is Onyx.
Yeah, I would just say that he's exotic because he's not your traditional dog. Still 12 out of 10 because they're all good.
Well, if that made you happy, just wait till you see the best thing ever of the week. There is a woman who moves like a horse.
Why do I want to go home and like try this?
We're actually going to show you the running butthole challenge right now. What's happening?
No, that's just wrong. Every way. And we'll see you next time.
Hey Dave, as you can probably see, Skype froze. Frozen crashed.
You know, I'm watching that documentary on the Vietnam War, and there was a TV journalist in the middle of some tiny little village in Vietnam doing live TV as the soldiers were burning the Vietnamese huts, and it didn't crash. And that was 1965, and he was in Vietnam.
Salam alaikum. Drop it. All right, power panel, Cenk Uygur, J.R. Jackson, Lance from the Surfs. Great to have you guys. In fact, also Denise Spencer, she just joined. She hit the join button below, bit of an American hero. Lance told me right before we came on that the internet has questions. And for the members, speaking of Denise, we're gonna do a bonus episode, and one of the topics we're gonna cover is the answers. I have the internet's answers. It's apparently about controversy around Dave Rubin and Hassan Piker, and I am one of the rare people who actually knows what happened. So, ooh, drums for the internet. Okay.
I'm trying to remember if I was there because I heard this question too, and I have intricate interactions with both of them in this setting that we're going to be talking about.
All right, answers for the members, tyt.com/join. Membership has privileges. You also hit the join button below on YouTube. All right, JR's got news for us.
Yes. Florida law enforcement officials are investigating a state representative there for breaking a law that he helped pass. No, I meant that. They're investigating a state representative who helped pass a law that he is potentially breaking now. That state representative, his name is Randy Fine, and this all started blowing up and falling apart once there was a bit of an explosion of harassment and violence that had been carried out towards his political opponents. And this was done via his Facebook page. Now, don't forget, the Facebook page is important here because, as the Daily Beast points out here, he was also a co-sponsor of this state's new anti-cyber bullying law. And the Florida Department of Law Enforcement is now investigating him for violating it. Again, so he's been online doing some mean things. Let's get into some of these details. Now, it's unclear just how closely Randy was involved with crafting Florida's Combating Public Disorder bill, which is a knee-jerk reaction by conservatives in the wake of the Black Lives Matter protests. He was one of 26 co-sponsors of the legislation, which received national media attention because, among other things, it allows pissed off drivers to run over protesters. I do remember us talking about this. Now, in this law, they create a cyber intimidation provision, and that makes it illegal to electronically publish someone's personal identification information, even something as simple as their name or phone number, if the intention is to incite violence, to threaten, or to harass them. Now, this makes it all, this all comes to there specifically because they're looking to target people that maybe use things like their Facebook page to incite violence, like Randy Fine allegedly did here. So there was one particular woman, her name is Jennifer Jenkins, and she was on a board of one of these school districts. As we've been seeing, this has been blowing up like crazy lately, so of course she gets targeted. So in her complaint to the state attorney, Phil Archer, she details how Fine took his campaign Facebook page and posted her personal cell phone number on July 29th, directing pissed off anti-maskers to flood Jenkins's phone number line immediately. Okay, maybe you don't think that's such a big deal. Continuing on, he wrote, COVID is neither highly transmissible in school and has nominal effect on children. If you want to stand up for your rights, call Jenkins right now and let her know exactly how you feel. That's what he had posted, as I mentioned. So things also especially got heated. It continued. Heated on September 1st. when anti-mask protesters rallied outside of her home. At least one waved the famous "Don't Tread on Me" Gadsden flag, a symbol that's been widely adopted by the gun-toting right-wing fringe, as many of us know. A Satellite Beach police detective was called in to investigate after receiving a report that one of the protesters, her name is Janice Crisp, she coughed in Jenkins's face. And as we know, that's kind of a pandemic era biological assault. And so a video appears to show Crisp yelling, "Randy Fine says hello." Oh, so they're linking him to this directly, like maybe he was sent. She was sent by Randy Fine to do such things. Maybe not specifically, but definitely at least to tell her how she feels. So 2 days later, Fine posted on Facebook, "I had nothing to do with it, for what it's worth. But when you use your home as your place or business and post the address on the internet, not sure you should be surprised when unhappy, quote, customers show up." So one more piece before we get to this discussion about what he was doing. Jenkins finally took the school board member. She finally took the step on November 3rd of seeking an emergency restraining order against the politician, citing stalking and cyber stalking after an anonymous caller sent a Florida Department of Children and Families investigator to her home to address a fake allegation of child abuse. Jenkins told the Daily Beast that she suspects it was Fine or one of his associates. So that's one of the things that he was doing as far as getting anger and violence and harassment towards one of the people that he doesn't like in her stance on mask wearing in schools. If you couldn't guess, that was the egregious thing that she was doing that got the ire of people that wanted her threatened. But this continued on and on, so they're now investigating him.
Yeah, so he passes, just to review, passes a law saying you should not do cyber bullying that could lead to stalking in person. It is literally exactly what he did. And then, of course, now he says, no, I wrote the law, I should be above the law. I mean, they say things with straight face, right? Now, of course, he claims, no. Me publishing people's personal phone number, not their office number, but their personal phone number, their home address, and there's a picture in there of two of his opponents, one of them who was severely beaten, we'll get to that in a minute, and their license plates. And he's like, what? What's cyber stalking? I don't know what you mean. And then tells people you should go get them, okay? I mean, it's a textbook case of that law. And look, he's done it a handful of times. They've got example after example in the story. In one of the lower level cases, not the guy where the guy is beaten halfway to death, but in a lower level case, a guy is going to testify against one of his political allies in a corruption case. So the guy's anti-corruption. Fine is furious. And so he then threatens the guy and he starts putting out on his page, he's mentally unfit. He's mentally unfit. And then they start pressuring his clients because the guy's a lawyer. And then the clients start dropping out. And the guy eventually has to literally leave town, go to a different city to restart his practice. So this is the Gestapo-like tactics that the right wing is using with impunity across the country and definitely in Florida. If we could let this happen, it's literal fascism when they say we can use violence, we can use stalking, we can use any intimidation tactics we want against you, and there is no rule of law for us. Rule of law is a joke, it's meant to oppress you, it's not actually meant for equal justice. And if that's the case in Florida, that is a scary place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to bring up one quick fact when you were talking about the schools, because I was just watching Stephen Crowder today, and he's kind of doing the same talking point about how there's not going to be a lot of kids who are going to catch COVID. So why in the world do we need to have masks or anything like that for children and stuff like that? Well, sorry, I should be like, well, why do we need masks for kids or what's going on here? It turns out that maybe those kids are going to have interactions with parents or teachers or other people. So even if they're asymptomatic, which even one kid dying, I think is too many, but even if you don't care about that, even if they're asymptomatic, it's probably a good thing that it spreads less, because then it gets, it's not going to be in the household and maybe one of those kids sets his grandma. Who knows what happens down the road?
Yeah, look guys, we don't want to wear the mask. We don't want the kids to wear a mask. I want my kids to be out there playing, having fun, etc. There's a reason we're doing it to protect people. The pill's gonna come out in March, and hopefully you'll all shut the hell up, the right wing. We'll put away the mask and this thing will be over. And but I guarantee you, even after the pill comes out and after everything is fine and we're happy to go back to regular business, they'll still be crying. right? Cry, cry, cry. Whenever it's them, I have to put on a mask, right? Oh, I threatened that person's life. I called him a child molester, etc. Oh, what? What, I get to do that? No, you don't. That's breaking the law. So JR, tell them about the guy.
So mask wearing and all this anti-vax stuff is just a catalyst for them to use foot soldiers to carry out their violence. Let's keep it real. They don't really care about this stuff because, as we know, many people that are against vaccines actually have it. So there's more details about political opponents and how then he uses what they're now fired up about to eliminate them, as Cenk pointed out with someone else. But this is that other story about the man being beaten. So after Randy Fine published a photo of Jenkins, again, the woman from the school board, and an Army veteran friend of hers. His name is Robert Burns, and he opposed him during his campaign. So he was posting things about what Randy Fine was up to, and he was actively working against him in the primary for the Republican, for his seat there. So on the same day that Jenkins filed for her stalking case against Fine, the state representative posted a paparazzi-style photo of Jenkins and Burns outside of the veteran's home. It showed a license plate and a house number. So Vine credited, quote, citizen journalists and linked to a blog post on an anonymously authored blog. So minutes after Fine made that post, Burns then allegedly was confronted by two men while he walked on a nature trail at a small nature preserve called Turkey Creek Sanctuary. So according to Burns, the interaction from the men that approached him went like this. They said, "Are you Robert Burns?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Are you Randy Fine's Robert Burns?" "Yeah, unfortunately," is what Burns replied. "Oh, okay, so you like to rape and abuse women and children." After that happened, the fight ensued, and while Burns said he struggled with one man, another swung a heavy object and slammed it against the back of his head. Burns, who suffered multiple traumatic brain injuries while he was in combat in Iraq, woke up on the ground dazed minutes later, and he had spent the evening in the hospital. And his ribs were bruised from what he can only guess was violent kicking while he was down. So during that whole battle back and forth, and they were fighting over campaign stuff, and then they were, mud was being slung. Some of the things that he was saying was happening was he was abusive to women, he was abusive to children, and that he was a rapist. So I'm not sure how founded many of these claims were, but definitely once his foot soldiers got to him, that was the message that they had received and that they were delivering.
So there's two incredibly scary parts of that story. One is they're now just using brown shirts to go attack their political opponents. Oh, here's this guy, here's his license plate, here's the house number, track him down and do whatever you're gonna do to him. And then they use violence. This is happening across the country. Like it only makes big news when it happens to someone famous. Like you send a threatening note to a congressperson or an anchor, news anchor on cable news, then everyone's like, "Oh, did you guys know what kind of threats are out there?" Yeah, we all know. They're doing it all across the country. And so when it's being done to regular folks, like getting assaulted in the woods and getting knocked out and having your ribs kicked in, everybody's like, whatever, that's just an average American. The brown shirts are just intimidating them so that the Republican politicians will win. That's not normal. That's fascism. And so the other really interesting point that comes out of that is, guys, there's a reason why these right-wingers are calling all of their opponents child molesters. Totally. Because it makes people think, well, I can do anything I want to a child molester. If they're a child molester, they're totally evil. So that's why we could hit him in the head and knock him out, and we could break his ribs, and we could do anything we want. We can go to their house, we can threaten their lives. We can do anything we want because they're child molesters. So what couldn't you do to a child molester? So
meanwhile, let's go to a Matt Gaetz rally.
Yeah, of course. Or let's go support Donald Trump.
Sorry, allegedly, I should say that.
Yeah, Matt Gaetz, yes. Is allegedly had sex with an underage girl, and he's being investigated for that. But they're like, yeah, but that's okay, he's a right winger. But look, Lance, we can go on and on. Roy Moore, a child predator, right? They're like, yeah, but he's our child predator, he's awesome. Oh, there's a fake charge of child predator? Let's go maul the guy. They don't care, they just want an excuse to hurt us. And so when you hear the QAnons and you hear any right-wing politician or leader or pundit talking about how the other side is child molesters, that is trying to egg you on towards violence, and it is almost never correct. And I mentioned Trump there just so we're clear on it. Yes, Jeffrey Epstein was the biggest child molester in the country, and yes, Donald Trump was great friends with him and said at the time, Jeffrey likes him young. So he knew that he was a child molester and never did anything about it. And then when his co-conspirator was arrested, he says, I wish her well. He said it 2 different times. get it right as to who the monsters in this country are.
They know.
Yeah, go ahead, Lance.
Oh, I didn't have anything on Jeffrey Epstein, but I will. I mean, sorry, we could talk about Bill Gates or something like that, but I was going to bring up the fact that you originally said that this bill was against, reactions to Black Lives Matter's protests, right? Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So it's kind of unusual to me that was kind of the preface for writing this bill in the first place, something that obviously has a lot of deep historical systemic racism, institutional racism, however you want to talk about it, and then a backlash to police violence against the Black population of the US versus people who think masks are itchy, right? Like I have a hard time equating the two as something that's going to be legitimate.
It doesn't have to make sense, because there's the other part of this too, Jake. You talk about how they're coming for maybe people on the other side of the aisle. This Robert Burns, at least the Army veteran who was attacked in the woods, his name is Burns. Robert Burns, I'm sorry. He was fighting against him on the primary. These are fellow Republicans. It's just a matter of whether or not you're in my camp or not. If you're gonna battle with me, we know, especially primaries on the Republican side, and get nasty, and it did. It's just it flowed out after that to be like, I gotta make sure these people just don't even think they can do this type of thing again. And it's gonna continue. I don't know if Jennifer Jenkins is a Republican or not. It doesn't matter to him. Hey, you're against me. You've done something to talk about what I am and who I stand for, or who I am and what I stand for. Time to send out the attackers, the foot soldiers, to go and do my dirty deeds. This is becoming way too normal. And the distraction, as you're talking about the fascism, is to, as you're practicing it, as you're implementing it, is to say, fascism, and you're right here carrying it on. That's the way it always works.
Yeah, so they did that bill and they celebrated that they could run over left-wing protesters. And when the minute it's applied anywhere near equally to a right-winger who's doing cyber stalking, they're like, we didn't intend that. That was just to kill black people. Now you don't want us to kill our political opponents? What is this, the equality under the law? They hate that idea because they hate the idea of America. That's the right wing. Okay, we gotta take a break. When we come back, more madness, but you're gonna love this one. Trump is apparently furious at DeSantis.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one. Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor, or concern for whose toes we might step on, or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
How in the world are you going to get the right to vote if you don't already have the right to vote? That's impossible. Reason they tell you things are impossible is because they don't want you to try. It only took 7 years for them to get an amendment to get a right to vote.
Does this result in millions upon millions of Americans losing their coverage? And we've been waiting to find out, and now we know, yes, it will cut millions.
Public education was supposed to be the way to equalize everyone regardless of their socioeconomic status. But if you come from a family that's poor, how are you going to afford grade school for your kids?
This fight is about fairness and morality. It's about the American values.
You think that black people all across the country, in every city, were all lying when they said the police abuse us and the police kill us when they should? No, of course they weren't lying. Yes, it does happen. Yes, they do get targeted more.
Why are we going to put immigrants in prison for 5 years, which American taxpayers have to pay for, if we're so concerned with immigrants using up our so-called resources?
We're gonna do both. We're gonna fight Trump and we're gonna fight the establishment. It's not that hard. Yes, you can do both at the same time. Go tell them.
ShopTYT.com has new shirts like this one. And you're thinking, Cenk, what is that one? I can't see it other than the black. Yes, so I'll show it to you. If you can read this, you're not practicing social distancing. Yes! Now, you were practicing social distancing. This is over video. But overall, you get it. ShopTYT.com.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, JR, and Lance with you guys. All right, JR, take it away.
Let's do it. Former President Donald Trump is milling around Mar-a-Lago and is complaining. He's doing a lot of complaining. Not much new for him, but he's complaining now about Ron DeSantis to anyone that'll listen to him, because he's upset that Ron DeSantis hasn't yet fully told everyone that he's not gonna run for president if Trump decides to in 2024. I just wanna harken back to that bet. Anyways.
Wait, what bet?
JR and I bet. He's crazy. He thinks Trump's not gonna run for president. So what am I gonna take off you, JR? $100?
Yeah, you're gonna pay me $100. That's what it was.
Yeah, okay.
So in this now, he's complaining about Ron DeSantis with a little bit too much popularity because he's afraid. Anyways, from Politico, they have some details from Politico's playbook. They did point out these things that are going on behind the scenes there. Trump has told his advisors that DeSantis privately assured him that he won't run if Trump does. But that's not enough for the former president. He wants DeSantis to say it publicly, to say it in public, at least that is. And Trump has even suggested that DeSantis shouldn't underestimate his Democratic challenger, Charlie Crist, calling him a killer. So he wants to make sure that, well, first off, he's complaining to everyone around that sees him. Ron DeSantis better focus on his race with Charlie Crist and not focus on me. Somehow he's taking this as a threat because he's just kind of getting popular off being you. But anyway, Charlie Crist is a killer. Make sure you focus on him, don't focus on me. He also one guest suspects that Trump's gripes are so frequent because he's planting them in hopes that they'll get back to DeSantis. Trust me, they have, especially by now. Politico's talking about it. Trump aides are starting to feel pressure also to pick sides in this whole fight. Now, he's made it known that he didn't appreciate that former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows traveled to Beverly Hills for a DeSantis fundraiser in June. You know who was also in attendance was Trump's pal and casino magnate Steve Wynn, former Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, and then this is now Mark Meadows went on to Orange County where he introduced DeSantis to other deep-pocketed donors. This is getting serious. So in a statement to Playbook, a spokesman, of course, this is the most predictable thing you can ever think of. A spokesman for Trump called this reporting, quote, fake news. So he's a little worried. Just saying, he's a little worried about what DeSantis is doing. This has been an ongoing thing. We've seen about straw polls that happened, and then DeSantis did too well in them, and Ron DeSantis is just kind of being who he is, and Trump is threatened.
Yeah, Trump's amazing, man, and it's also amazing that Republican voters picked the weakest guy in the world to look up to as the alpha male. Right? So the DeSantis might run. He did slightly well in a poll against me. Like, you know what Trump does? He does power crying. Like, not like a little light crying, like real power crying. So this is a DeSantis ad where he was teaching his baby how to be more like Trump, okay? That's how much up Donald Trump's ass DeSantis is. And Trump thinks, not far enough. I want you in my bowels, okay? And you knelt at my feet in private, but I need you to do it in public and humiliate yourself the way Lindsey Graham has, Mike Pence has, everybody has.
Nikki Haley, right? Did she do it too?
Yeah, of course. They all say, oh yeah, well, Trump is a little problematic when he threatened to murder his vice president. And then they're like, sorry, no, it's totally fine, totally fine. Look, that's what a real leader does, including Mike Pence. He's like, oh, we had a slight disagreement when I was almost murdered, but everything's fine now, right? So he's trying to get DeSantis to kneel and grovel. I'm looking forward to it. Either way, fun for us. Lance.
Well, I was also going to bring up, like, you're saying that Trump always demands like the fiercest loyalty from like everyone who works for him, and that, like, I totally agree with you. That's totally true. But like, I could even joke about this one. I would be more scared of DeSantis than I would of Donald Trump running, or at least even winning, because Trump, for everything, is riddled with so many legal problems right now, so much infighting. He's like, I know it's the Trump brand. That's basically what the Republican Party has become, and DeSantis kind of like took that over. But DeSantis, everything put aside, still seems a lot more competent at his job than, say, Donald Trump is. So when it came down to it, I would be more fearful of someone who's more effective at being a politician as a Republican than I would of the Trump train.
I think it's pretty obvious that behind the scenes, not many Republicans like Donald Trump. Look what happened in 2015 when he announced he was running. It wasn't like all of these Republicans were like, oh yes, Donald Trump. They said he's a fool, he's a bad father, he's not a real Republican because he's buddies with the Clintons, all that stuff. He's a New Yorker like the rest of these immoral New Yorkers. They hated him. Everything he did that was actually working with their racist base, they were trying to push back on. And they've just, after it worked, they're like, oh, we're all on board. So I feel like Ron DeSantis is still listening to the voices behind the scenes. They're like, we need one person that's gonna do something about this because we can't take another Donald Trump. I don't think the Republican Party wants Donald Trump to run again. They'll take it if they think it'll help them win, but then they have to deal with him more. They'd rather deal with a kind of Donald Trump in Ron DeSantis than dealing with the actual Donald Trump, but they can't say it out loud, and neither can Ron DeSantis.
Well, I'm gonna have an ironic agreement with JR, and I'm actually going to disagree with Lance, so now let's have fun, okay?
I thought I was gonna get an unironic agreement.
No agreement for you. Look, the ironic agreement with JR is, yes, of course, the Republican politicians, they want someone who is more stable, who isn't going to ask them to lick his boots 24/7, who isn't going to humiliate and degrade them nonstop, and who's just gonna go back to business as usual. Remember when we all had a fun time? We'd go take our orders from corporations and our owner donors would tell us what to do. It was such a simple life, it was a good life. We were all powerful and the corporate media would cover for us and CNN would say, I can't tell who's right or wrong. Now everybody's a pain in our ass. Trump is kind of gone in there and pissed off everybody so much that they're even calling us out sometimes. Sometimes we even get caught in our corruption. So this is a real pain in the ass. And now we all used to share power, but now Trump wants all the power for himself. Yes, so the Republican elites, leaders, etc., they've never wanted Trump and they don't want Trump now. And by the way, that's part of his appeal. He is really good at being a fake populist. And one of the ways you could be a fake populist is you hit everybody in power and then you turn around and you give everybody the donors everything they want anyway, right? That's the fake part. Notice that one of the things that Trump is most mad at, Mark Meadows introduced DeSantis to the rich donors. He's like, no, the rich donors' bribes are for me. I take all the bribes. Why? Because he's a mob boss, right? I don't want the money going to the capo. I want to go to me, okay? I don't want anybody dipping into my till. And so, oh my God, this guy's getting a piece of the corruption action. The guy, Trump ran out drain the swamp. And then look at him, like the minute, he's like, oh, he's going after the people who do the bribes. I want the bribes. So Trump's such a monster, no. Look, Lance, you're totally wrong, okay? You get a regular, like I take a Marco Rubio type over Trump a billion times, okay? For two reasons. And now DeSantis is somewhere between Rubio and Trump, but no one's like Trump, with the possible exception of Tucker Carlson. So since Trump has no ethics, no morality, no empathy, complete and utter narcissist, he doesn't care about the country at all. He doesn't care about the Republican Party. He doesn't care about the voters. He doesn't care about anyone but Trump. And then when you load up all of his legal troubles, financial troubles, that gives him an enormous incentive to go, well, the justice system is annoying me by trying to catch me on my crimes. I'm done with the justice system. This whole losing election things is annoying me, so I'm done with elections.
Yeah.
He would end democracy so quick. He tried last time. He considered a coup. He didn't mind the hang Mike Pence chant. We did that story earlier today. That's violence against his own vice president. I can go on and on. Whereas DeSantis is closer to a regular politician. If DeSantis went in and ended democracy, I would be relatively surprised. So the regular right wing, that's a monster we can beat. But if they end elections, we can't undo that. So Trump is definitely the most dangerous. I'd much rather have DeSantis win.
Could I respond to just that one point though?
No, I'm kidding, of course.
All right, fine. Well, the only thing I want to say on that though is that I think Joe Biden was effectively elected not so much that people were inspired by Joe Biden in the same way they were inspired by, say, like Barack Obama, like, vote for change, vote for hope kind of stuff. It was like, I'm not Donald Trump. Like, things are so messed up right now. You vote for me, we're gonna change course and do that. And unfortunately, so far, I haven't seen Joe Biden delivering on so many of the things that are gonna be essential for like the American people, right? Like a $15 minimum wage, paid family leave, those kind of things. So if the argument is going to be that he's going to go up against yet another Trump, then I almost feel like Joe Biden's ready for that kind of like, well, you don't want that again. You don't want this terrible thing again. Whereas I'd still feel that DeSantis would be more effective politically. But that's just the Canadians' opinion.
No, Lance, I agree with that part. But the problem is, I already think that Biden has such a low chance of winning. The question is, which Republican are we going to get? Are we going to get a full-blown fascist, a semi-fascist, or just a normal corporate Republican who's corrupt, like the kind that we've lived with our whole lives, right? And so Biden is doing none of his promises, and he thinks the genius idea is to blame his own side and his own voters and his own base. That is loser 101. And the other thing is, be careful what you wish for. You think that Trump has a lower chance of winning. I don't even agree with that. I think Trump is the best at fake populism, and he's definitely the best at hitting the establishment. And so if you run a corporate Democrat against the populists, you're gonna lose 99 out of 100 times. And Biden already got the one win, okay, against Trump, because Trump was so monstrous that he wound up losing. But remember, he only lost by 43,000 votes in 3 states. It was a razor thin victory for Joe Biden. I'd never take that chance again.
Yeah. The fear from Trump with running, in my opinion, isn't that he's worried about losing to a Joe Biden. He's worried about losing to like the hearts and minds within the party that's gonna help propel him, because he is absolutely obsessed with how much support am I getting? Are you still backing me? How come you didn't back me more on January 6th? How come you didn't back me on this? How come you didn't back me more on Ukraine? How come you didn't back me? He needs all this support, because if one person says something off, his ego is so fragile that as soon as one person dissents, he's like, okay, I gotta attack him. Look at the was it 10 to 12 Republicans that voted for the second impeachment? He's like, I gotta get all of them, every one of them. Lisa Murkowski just announced that she's gonna run again. And that was like, the headline was, she stands up against Trump and says she's gonna run again because the rest of them are just leaving like losers. That's the battle is within the Republican Party here. Once he gets that, he's happy.
Yeah, so last thing guys, DeSantis now has a choice. Either he's gonna bend a knee or he's gonna fight Trump. Well, both are not so bad, because every politician that bends a knee to Donald Trump signals to their voters, I'm a beta, I'm weak, and I'm here to just take this guy's orders. He's the real man, and I'm just the weakest person you've ever met. So they're humiliating themselves. So that's a fun outcome for a guy who I loathe, DeSantis. Or they fight. That's a really good outcome. So Trump, keep going, brother. Let's see how that turns out.
But then in that metaphor, who's the Sigma male? That's what I'd want to know.
I've lost track, man. I don't know who the Omega is. I don't know. Okay. All I know is they think they for some reason they think an alpha male cries all day, all night. I am very strong. Oh, they took the election from me. They want to burn me publicly. Okay, if that's your version of strength, have at it, Hoss. Okay, we gotta go. We'll come back. More disastrous stories. We'll be back.
You know, old school's pitched to me from Jank. It'll just be me, you, Jesus, Ben, and maybe Michael. And we're like, okay, cool. I can do that every week. As you can see, me, Jesus, Ben.
When you make the order, it says, don't exceed $20.01. So I'll just order literally anything to get it as close to that as I possibly can.
I'm sorry that I ordered $45 worth of food and got an email saying, sir, would you like to rethink that? What are you talking about?
I was in hell. I was just like, oh my God, the theater's empty, nobody's here. Everyone on screen keeps fucking cursing. Why did I let this happen? And the whole thing looks like it was shot through a glass of milk. My mom's gonna be so mad.
If you're looking for a heart attack, the short way, baby.
Wrong. I did put mayonnaise on it. I'm the most in shape, overweight person you'll find.
That's right.
He was like, why didn't you answer my call? I called you 39 times.
Yuck. But what makes you stop right before 40? You know, what makes you say, nah, man, I ain't doing that no more. I'm cool.
And I called you back on the air. And I was like, okay, Kevin Smith, big shot. What the you said you'd come on and you didn't come on.
I'm sure I took that very well.
Yeah, you did. You called me back the next day and said, I thought it was 7 a.m. There's now deep fake porn. I don't know if you guys have heard of this.
Heard of it? I just had some in the car.
I'll tell you who I'm not f***ing, Ben Mankiewicz. Have you guys ever felt that?
Not ever.
And now it's just the three of us.
This is the intimate hour.
By the way, the last half hour of this, we're not even rolling.
Fair enough.
Kingsley.
See, I watch movies.
I'm done with both of you.
Once Greg starts laughing, I can't stop. And I was just gonna ask you about getting high.
Snoogans, Snoochie Boochies. And members, of course, you can get the whole damn thing. TYT.com, join and free trial. I'm old school with the old folks.
Good
John,
man.
come back.
Field goal here. It's time to switch to beer.
Oh, man.
Oh, God.
Do your best.
He's a little like...
Oh. No one's happy now.
Give him another try.
Oh.
Wow. This is the weirdest game.
I'm Brett. I would like to refer to this segment as the Do I Still Have This Talent show. So I want to see if I can play harmonica without my hands. I don't know why I have that. Nothing's gonna be more impressive than that. I can also spin a basketball on my finger. While drinking. I'm gonna spin a basketball on my finger while drinking apple juice. You can do this, dude. It's also flat. I don't know if that helps or hurts. And it seems to be somewhat wobbly. Ta-da! Nope, I don't know how to do this one. This one's a fail. Nope. Oh God, I'm so mad.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Lance, and JR with you guys, but also Goose Hostetler and Chris Bonucci. They just joined, or Bonucci, by hitting the join button below on YouTube. If you're on a mobile, by the way, just scroll down a little further and you'll see the join button. Members make this show possible. I'm gonna read just one quick comment from a member. In fact, Shikata Ganai wrote in, but Cenk, will Tucker Carlson run for POTUS himself in 2024? I think that Trump and Tucker Carlson are the two people who are a real threat to end our democracy. Most other Republicans, they'll just do the standard corruption. I'm less concerned about them. We have to defeat the corrupt Republicans and the corrupt Democrats no matter what. That's our long-term fight. I'm just trying to not lose the country in the meanwhile. Yeah, okay. All right, Jay.
Let's work on it. A woman at a fancy Beverly Hills hotel was mad about the valet drivers. So in other words, it's just another day in Los Angeles is what this is. So this video has been making its rounds on the internet. So let's have a look at her response to a lack of service.
So I just left my client who's staying at the Beverly Wilshire off of Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, right? Upon arrival, I pull up and I see the dehumanized, muzzled face valet standing there just staring at me. And I'm waiting because, you know, one would assume that the valet comes to help you with the door, assist with the 5 bags and folding makeup chair that I have to carry up a million flights, and then maybe, I don't know, park the car. But no, he's just standing there staring at me. So I'm waiting and I then have to ask, excuse me, what would you like me to do? He says, oh, you could just park down there. What? So you're telling me you're not gonna do your job? Oh, let me guess why. Because COVID. Yeah, so the valet is now paid to just stand there and stare at you while you get your out of the car and park your own car. Please explain to me why this is a job.
Please explain it to me. Okay, outside of just the rant, because rants are funny to me. It doesn't matter what it is and who it's about, but they're just fun. But I feel like we need more details because everyone has a lot of opinions and talking about what's happened. She rolls up to a place where valet is standing and they don't do anything because of COVID. Because of COVID in what way? Because of why in COVID? There's many aspects of COVID that give reasons for policies that happen at places of business, especially places like this where they can't wait to help someone drive up and valet their car. Something else was happening.
Nah.
Something else was happening that has to do with her.
Yeah, well look, you're overanalyzing and I'm looking forward to doing likewise. Okay, but first, what's amazing to me is that right-wingers see Barbie Karen and they think, nailed it. Like they think that's a decent person. That's a wonderful person who's really mad at the muzzled F-face valet. That the problem is the valet, the average guy who's supposed to schlep her 5 bags, right? And that's the guy who is the problem in this country. And she's outraged. She's like, why won't the peasants carry my valise, right? Okay, so she's one person, but she put that video out thinking nailed it, right? And the right wingers look at it and go, she's so right, man. We should kick the ass of that valet. They didn't say violence, to be fair, right? But he's apparently a muzzled F-face. And okay, fine, Jared, I'll also humor your overanalysis, okay? Yeah, we live in LA. No valets are like, yeah, whatever, dude. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. So I don't know what actually happened there, but from even that short video, you get a sense that perhaps she has expectations that are not normal for what people should do, perhaps. All right, Lance, your thoughts on this important controversy.
Well, I'm kind of shocked you guys weren't telling the full story. It wasn't a hotel at all. That was just a Wendy's. I know it's awkward, but yeah, these things do happen. Maybe I'll say one thing. I know we're not using the K-slur anymore because obviously the controversy surrounding it, but I would like to say just for the record that men can be K-slurs just as much as women and non-binary people as well. I mean, it's an open and new world now. So everyone can be a K every now and then. So that's definitely the situation taking place, I think.
Is that right? We're not using that as so I have
I don't know. I know there was rules before I got on. Like you can't say certain things, so I didn't know if that was.
Yeah. Well, maybe I should retract my Barbie Karen line. Oh, I said it again. Okay.
Well, you brought up a point about how she put this out there and made sure people knew her point of view. I complain all the time in the car. I mean, I complain about drivers, I complain about pedestrians, I complain about the weather, I complain about that stoplight, I complain about how short this happened, I complain all the time in the car. You know who hears that? Nobody hears that. Why do they need to hear me complain about the car in front of me that stopped at that yellow light? Why do they need to hear about that? Why do they need to hear about the guy that's in the fast lane driving 55 miles an hour? Hey, I yell about it into my windshield all the time. But you know what would happen if I went on the internet and said, you know what, I can't stand when people drive in front of me and stop there. Because nobody cares. Nobody, I just put this out. It was tweet or Instagram, one of them. And I was complaining to myself the other day, all day. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna stop complaining to myself because I'm not complaining to anyone else. And frankly, I'm tired of hearing this guy complain. So just shut up. Do you think it'll get support? No, I don't even think right-wingers are gonna be like, yeah, go Karen. No, they're not. They're gonna be like, oh my God, stop talking. Nobody wants to hear you complain about a valet. Make it a little more important, then you can complain because you're not gonna get any support.
Yeah, is there a context where complaining makes sense? Yes, so if you're trying to look out for other people, for example, so the valet has got somebody in a wheelchair and he's like, oh, whatever, okay? Then be a Karen, then go to the management or even make a video about it or film him going, hey, that's a person in a wheelchair, why aren't you helping him, right? So like, it's a little bit complicated in that sense, right? But like when you're doing an elitist, snobby complaint about how the valet has not served you well enough, I mean, theoretically, she's also a working person. She's a makeup artist, so she's not the person getting the makeup. So keep that in mind too. And by the way, guys, these are randos, right? We just use them as examples so we could all treat each other with a little bit more decency. But you don't have to track her down. We don't have to get her fired. We don't have to cancel her. Like, it's okay. It's just a funny, ridiculous mindset that we want to show you guys. But I like Lance's idea. It's possible that the guy wasn't even a valet. Like she just saw a guy on the street and was like, why aren't you carrying my bags? He's like, I don't know, what, COVID? I don't know.
Number two, no, bellhops.
Or he just might have had a mask on.
Maybe she doesn't get to these hotels much because bellhops take your bags, right? Isn't it like hotel staff versus valet?
Yeah.
So if you're getting your bags taken, that's by the staff, not by the guys parking cars. So I don't know if she was like, where did you get my bags? And maybe then they went, maybe you want to park your car over there, lady. I don't know. I just feel like there's more to this story.
Park your car over there could mean park your car and we'll get your bags. She's like, how dare you? Look, it goes to the entitlement mindset and it goes to the way they think about people, right? And the lack of decency. That's the issue here. But let's all try to be more understanding, even to K-word Barbie.
By the way, there's a contagious energy I feel like there's in LA, in that business, in the entertainment, celebrity business. Maybe she works with high level people and they probably treat her like garbage. And then once assistants or makeup artists, anyone get treated like garbage, they start treating other people that they feel are beneath them like garbage because they gotta unleash the anger because you've been building up with all this negativity and disrespect you've been getting all day.
That sucks though. That's like the pattern of abuse.
Absolutely.
You get bullied, you bully someone else.
You gotta be a better person.
I mean, anyone who's had like a part-time job knows how it is to deal with people who are just getting at you. And at the end of the day, it's like, this is for a bag of popcorn. Like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, 100%. All right, guys, amazing bonus episode for you guys, including the drama that we have the information on. Hassan Piker versus Dave Rubin. What really happened? The internet wants to know. Our members are gonna find out first. TYT.com/join or the join button below. We'll see you there.